On this first episode of this podcast that has no name yet, Bobby and I talk about the stuff that we did in 2023. We go through some of our lows, some of our highs, some of our learning experiences, and kind of give you a picture of what Scrapyard is like.
For me, big year joining the company in general, and we just did our best to shoot our first podcast, so I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That way we're just sitting down and...
Yeah, and then once you script it, then we can have a better idea if we want to put some B-roll over it and stuff like that. Yeah, one, we'll be able to cut everything up, but to kind of throw a towel on it with like a...
For all your drinks.
Look at these match so well too.
It's just a habit. It's part of my 2024 plan, actually.
To plan people use coasters?
Yeah. One of my biggest goals.
I mean, I thought that I was annoying about it, but you're like another level with this shit.
Right,
so
2023, yeah.
Let's do it. I mean, what a weird, unexpected year for me, personally speaking. Me joining in March and the unexpected call of like, hey, do you think you might like to do this thing? Do you want to come do it? Do you want to try it out? And yeah, rest was history. But that first gig was
It was
Miami. It was the boat show where we stayed in that shitty Airbnb, and I slept on a lumpy couch for 5 days and had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
Almost fell off a boat.
Yeah, almost fell off a boat first week. Damn. Yeah, now I gotta go meet with those guys in 2 weeks. Pretend like that never happened. Tony was driving.
Or just roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Take the clip and show Tony.
Yeah, be like, hey, do you remember when this happened? I should just own it. I didn't fall in the water, like that was the biggest thing. And you got it on the drone, so as long as we got like footage of things like that when it happens, then it was all worth it. But yeah, that first trip was, I had no idea what to expect. Not knowing how to operate a camera, like not understanding the basic settings of a camera, taking many blown out videos, I'm sure.
Yeah, all those convention center shots that you went back just specifically to get, and they were all blown out.
Yeah, the outdoor shots. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a good one, and then it's just fucking completely ruined. Oh, God. Yeah, I look back on those moments a lot. I tried to, anyway, just to think about, I mean, because when you do that, the level of disappointment you have, like, it could have been, I mean, you think about when we piece a video together, we use maybe like 5 seconds of a quarter of those shots, but it's always that what could have been feeling of like, oh, if I would have just nailed those settings, then it would have been, it could have made a huge difference. Like, oh, if I would have captured that moment, because if you miss those moments, you're not getting them back. And you can replicate them, but people can tell when it's not natural.
You know, that trip was on my highlights for the year. So I have like a few of my favorite projects of the year. And it wasn't that trip specifically, but one of the things that we were working on that trip was the first impressions video of the 400R V10 Merc Racing engines. And when we were there, one of the things that we did was go to that event, the unveiling of the engines. And we had the video ready to go. Like it was done, it was ready to be published.
Yeah.
And that was like, I think that was my top like Scrapyard moment of the year.
Really?
Was I'm just watching all these guys and you know they're like Facebook living it and just like getting their videos with their phones or whatever, and I'm over there sitting at the table
just
waiting to
publish.
just publish this. I think it was like an 18-minute video of the Sensation guys just going through everything on.
And
this
you know, a chunk of those guys they're subscribed to that, so they're recording it, and then they got a little notification that says like Sensation drops new 400R video. Yeah, that was like a really sneaky thing.
Oh, that felt so good.
Yeah, it felt like you surprised the whole industry with that.
What's one of your favorite projects from last year?
Well, there was a few. I mean, the low-hanging fruit, and it's not a project, but more of like a moment, was Fresh Coast. For obvious reasons. I mean, I got engaged on that trip, so like that's the first one that came to mind, most meaningful moment of the year for me, either way.
Yeah.
But even just going and watching these films after doing this for, I don't know what it was, 6 months at that point, having a different mentality going into that of, I could we could do this. Still a lot of work to be done on my end to get to that point, but even seeing things that felt borderline achievable, if I would have gone and done that a year ago, I would have been there just to enjoy the films, but I would have had no idea what went into that, the travel, the filming time, the editing time, all of that. And now still looking at that, it still feels like now that's an end goal. Or not an end goal, but a goal, is to get to the point where we can make something like that.
It's just a matter of time now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're working toward. What else would we be doing this for if it weren't for looking at some of these things that maybe we can't do yet, but want to do, and everything that we do now is just going to slowly get us there over time.
Yeah.
So, another project, the Mike Howe project. I mean, that trip alone.
Is that in your top favorites?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mike was such a nice guy, and staying with him and Sarah was great. Working with a fellow creator was great. The conversations that we had outside of just his history and shooting that film was enlightening, to say the least.
He was really the first subject that had an occupation that wasn't in performance boating.
Yeah.
His job, his day-to-day job was for the defense of the country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so different.
Kind of a wild thing.
Yeah.
But it was cool to go in there and see his facility and talk about stuff that wasn't boating related.
Yeah.
We threw a tank in his interview.
Yeah, right. Like, it was just a fascinating story, and it was different from anything from before, and I like that. Yeah. I mean, performance boating is great. It just doesn't resonate with everyone, so just to see a story of a guy that went from very little to what he has now and what he's doing with that, it was a fun story to tell, a fun video to put together. Going up there was great.
Yeah, the Kraken trip, so later going with Mike and Sarah, when Katie and I went down to the Keys with them, that was another one of my highlights of the year. I put it more as like a top moment, not necessarily like a favorite project or anything, because we went there without really an objective to create something.
Yeah.
We went there to build a relationship with them and see if we could help them with their YouTube channel in the future. So it really created this like bubble for Katie and I to just enjoy being there and spend time with them. And what great people to just spend time with. I mean, you got a taste of it when we were in Maine. They're just such down to earth, like genuine people.
Yeah.
And spending 5 days with them was all of that. There was no fakeness that we saw when the cameras were on. Because when we were with them, they were the same exact people.
Yeah.
Where did you have the factory billet project on your list of things from last year?
So I would put that in like biggest learnings for me. Let's say my nerves were racked going into the shoot for Factory Billet. One of the more rewarding projects, though, that was the most documentary style filming that I did all year. Was, okay, these guys have a boat, they're gonna break a record in it, or they're gonna try. Just be there, be present, and try to capture events as they unfold. And luckily enough, I mean, it just worked out. So the highs and lows were so natural with parts of the boat malfunctioning and kind of like the quick fix that they put it the day before they broke the record, the gap between their old record and their new record, it all, just the payoff of the story at the end was so great. And being there and shooting that was great. Albeit it was nerve-wracking because you're in that, you have the understanding of, well, if I don't get this, it's not happening again. So constant filming, putting up the drone, having the drone just hang out in the air, set the controller down, grab the Ronin, film, drop the Ronin, get some long lens stuff. I mean, my goal was just get everything I possibly can. So I'm not necessarily envious of you for having to comb through all of that. But I did enjoy the fact that I got to shoot it and I gave it to you and you edited this video together that told basically two stories at once in a way that I hadn't necessarily envisioned it. So I liked that. I liked being the shooter on that, giving that to you, and being there for those 3 days was just crazy. And that was probably the first solo project that I did, other than... No, actually, the first solo project I did was on to Skater by myself before I even started work. You just gave me a few $100 and in gas money.
Yeah, and you did a good job getting what you could. But this was your first time. That was a shoot for a video that maybe played in like 5% of the shots.
Yeah.
This was, you shot everything from the start to the end of that video. It was all 100% you.
Yeah.
That's a different beast.
No, completely different.
You were ready to do that, but I feel like everything that you've done in the first year working at Scrapyard has been like right on the edge of like, this is too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, if I'm being honest, most of the time I'm like, I don't know. I am going to cue you up for some disappointment on this one. Like, who knows how this one's going to go. But at the same time, the faith that you have in pushing me into that gives me confidence to be like, okay, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not going to feel like I'm going to mess this up. I'm just going to do my absolute best. Knowing that that's what you're expecting is just do your best. Mm-hmm. And yeah, going from there, every other project that's been handed to me is like, I always get that feeling in my stomach of like, I don't know, like this is kind of a lot. And I mean, I'm still sitting here, so I didn't get fired yet. So it's working out all right.
Your progression over that 9-month period to now, drastic. Mm. And now you're starting a new project in flying FPV. And, you know, it's like that first shoot when you went to Skater and you were trying to just figure it out on your own. Like, we already got a couple first shoots under your belt. Mm-hmm. But in 10 months from now, like, where do you think you're going to be with FPV?
FPV landed on my biggest fuck-ups list. So I don't even want to say it's easy enough to chase a boat because I'm not there yet. But in the sense of how comfortable I am doing it. Well, the first one, as I was doing it, felt great, felt very comfortable until the battery died and I just dunked it into the lake. And that was a huge blow to my confidence level. Took a long time to get back behind the sticks, and the first time that I did, I was shaking. I was so nervous. So once I got it up there, though, on second flight, and then third and fourth, I started to feel more comfortable. And so flying it at high speeds over water, as long as you're paying attention to the battery life, not as rattling as trying to float it around in small spaces. I want to get to the point where I can do that so comfortably that I can pick something that I want to point at and just kind of circle it if I need to. Create that feeling of smooth motion that you see in FPV videos, but on more intricate things inside if I need to, like going through, if we're going to fly through the Sensation plant or something when they open up their new location. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to do that just to provide some cool new footage and angles and shots.
When you go to fly that indoors, we'll probably have to get a new drone with the guards. Yeah. And you can get a much smaller one that just kind of like floats around rather than goes 90 miles an hour.
Right, yeah, something that's a way less intense to try to fly inside. And I guess I don't even think about that. Right now, I don't even want to think about the equipment that can make it easier for me. Like, I might as well just grind on what we have.
Right, and that's the thing that I think about.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I'm thinking about, okay, if you're going to invest time into learning this skill set, how am I going to invest money into enabling you to get better at it?
And I don't think about that at all. I just take what you give me and I'm like, all right, well, I'll make this work. And I'm trying to fly a 90-mile-an-hour drone inside. Yeah. But it's a great way to learn because then as soon as you give me the gift of like, hey, this will make your life 10 times easier, then it becomes 10 times easier. Yeah. And I'm 10 times more motivated to use it. And it's more efficient.
Or it's 10 times harder when I'm like, here, try to fly this FPV drone versus the Mavic.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. I like video games, and it's intense, man, flying that thing around.
Anybody that's flown a drone and crashed it knows the feeling that you felt.
Yeah. Oh, defeat, pure
Yeah.
defeat.
Yeah.
God, I can't even.
Your stomach just drops, you know.
You were prepping me for a moment of learning right after the fact because you had been there, because you had crashed multiple drones at that point.
It inspired
and
you.
Inspired
First day of flying.
I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
The crashing of the Inspire has got to be on my like all-time fuck-up list. Like not for the year.
That one's bad.
It's like all-time.
That one's brutal.
Yeah. God.
Did it get caught in the tree when you crashed it? Or did it just did it crash to the ground?
It hit the tree and crashed to the ground and like pretty much exploded. Like both arms were broken, the camera was broken, the gimbal was broken.
It's so heavy. So it was destroyed, total.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another fuck up. The first look for Nicole and Caleb, I was using the Ronin. You know, you get a certain level of understanding of something where if it starts to malfunction, you don't panic. You know why it's malfunctioning. You troubleshoot it right away. That was not me in the Ronin at that point. And I don't know what happened, but it started to shake and it started to fall down. And so I'm sure it was user error because I was so green and I just grabbed the camera and just held it, and the Ronin was just on the side, just like freaking out. And it was at the moment of a first look, and I think I was shooting Caleb's face. And so it was supposed to be this perfect shot. I'm lined up there, I'm ready for it, and then the fucking thing just starts freaking out. And then, I mean, we pieced it together, and we made the video work, but it was just the moment that it happened was the absolute worst moment that it could have happened, unless we were like shooting their first kiss or something. But that was just, I
forgot about that one.
I still think about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't a paid project, but it's still this moment for them that while the video is still good and it was free, I still think, well, this one shot, that's one of those one shots I'm like, oh, I wish I had that one back. But because it's so sentimental to somebody that I've known for so long. So, yeah, that one still weighs on the brain a little bit.
One that you might not even know about was at the beginning of last year. And this was when Ryan was still part of Scrapyard. And him and I were talking about creating a reality TV show for performance boating for the racing. Mm-hmm. So we were going to follow 3 or 4 race teams throughout the year and put together like episode by episode season for these race teams. Kind of similar to what we're anticipating doing this year, but we just didn't have the confidence or the knowledge to execute it. And we got to the point where we had a call set up with 3 of the race teams that was scheduled for like, I don't know, call it Thursday. And the night before we were supposed to have the call, Ryan and I decided that we were not going to pursue the project.
What, just didn't feel
the entire project, yeah.
Didn't feel ready?
We felt like it was going to set us up for failure. We didn't think that we would be able to execute what we were saying we wanted to do. So the night before is when we're like making that decision, Ryan and I. Mm-hmm. And I think the call was in the morning the next day. And we kind of like, I don't remember exactly if we said we were going to like sleep on it or whatnot, but we ended up canceling the call 30 minutes before the actual call.
God damn.
And I called Matt and told him that we weren't going to do it. And it was like a drone crashing type feeling.
Yeah.
Because I'm letting these guys down. We had been talking about this for weeks, months before, planning for this call that we were going to pitch this to these guys.
I mean, that is such a moment of being honest with yourself, where you're like, if we do this, we won't be able to do it right. And it's worse to do it wrong than it would be to just not do it yet and wait until you're more prepared.
I was just so distraught that it came down to the last minute, and I didn't give ample notice before saying we weren't going to do it.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest mistake of the year.
It had got to feel relatively comparative to everything with the Mike Howe edit for me, coming down to that last moment of nerve-wracking anxiety of then being like, okay, well, there's nothing to hide behind at this point. Like, it just is what it is. But
give me some context. What do you mean about the Mike Howe one?
So when working on the Mike Howe video, it wasn't the first one that I had worked on. It was a little bit different. I think it was that I knew more, so it was harder for me to put it together because I wanted to do certain things after seeing the first one that I did. And those certain things I didn't know how to do, or they were harder for me to do, but I wanted to do them. But I just didn't have a good understanding of what the workload was like and where I should be at certain points. And it really had just more to do with me not being as open as I should have been about how the project was going for me, where I was getting stuck, how long it was taking me. And then we got down to that moment where if we hadn't decided that we were going to wait for additional stuff with the Kraken and expanding the video a little bit, it would have been the original deadline of the video. And I brought the hard drive over and I'm like, here's where, like, I showed you where I'm at. And you're like, this is, like, based on the delivery timeline, there's no way.
Which was only like a couple days.
Yeah, it was like a Tuesday, I think, is when we were supposed to have it done.
And we were looking at it on Saturday.
I think it was Sunday. And it was just like, it's not possible. Yeah. And in my mind, even up to that point, until you finally said it, and then I'm like, yeah, I was still in my head convincing myself, like, well, if I do this, if I work like 3 12-hour days in a row or something like that, like, I can do it. I can get it done. It's been what I've been capable of in most things throughout my life with being a habitual procrastinator, is like you just get used to these moments. And so I'm like looking at another one, staring down the barrel of it, and I'm like, okay, well, I can do this because I've always done it. And I had no idea that there was no way I was going to do it. And it was because you can't necessarily rush these things. It takes time. Yeah. And I was used to rushing anything when I needed to and still delivering. And it just wasn't going to work out that way.
Yeah. So, well, like, knowing what you know now, you can look back and say, okay, I know where that video was at, and understand that it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
Because I think what made you realize that it wasn't possible was when I said I couldn't get it done. If I took this video from you right now, I would not be able to get it published on Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, at that point, I think you might have even had a sense of relief, like, okay, this is where we're at.
Yeah,
like,
that's what the moment that you told me, like, no, we can't.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, at least then that is like there was some finality in that statement that did give me a little bit of comfort, but then it was just the tail between the legs, like, all right, well, like, my bad, and then figuring out what we were going to do after that. But I hope that after everything that happened with you and Ryan, with canceling that project, knowing that it was the best thing for Scrapyard at the time, there was some sense of understanding that came from Matt and Jason, the same way that you had understanding with me and me putting myself in that position, nobody else putting me in that position.
Yeah, if anything, it taught us where we needed to have communication points throughout the project. Mm-hmm. Because I gave you, and this might have been one of those times where I just pushed you too far too early, where I was like, here, just go do this, and when it's done, come show it to me, right? And now we know we have to have a check-in once the narrative is laid. And then we have to have another check-in once the video is further along with, like, B-roll and music and everything, to just make sure that we're on track and that it's fitting what we said we were going to deliver.
Yeah.
So that kind of led to us creating that whole editing process document.
Mm-hmm. Which helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also an understanding for me of while we take certain projects and we run them, there's still always going to be collaborative effort between anything we do. Feedback, even as little as feedback, even as little as I'm stuck on this one thing and I show it to you and you could figure it out in 30 seconds because you have a completely clean slate with a video. Mm-hmm. Like, there's times where I get in a hole where I'm like, I hate all of this.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's like every video.
Yeah. And then I could show Junior and be like, no, this is fine.
Yeah. When you listen to the same song like 100 times.
Yeah. And it just
you're like, well, that first time, I think I liked it.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, no, I didn't pick the right song. I'm going to have to find a new one. And it's going to take me 4 hours or whatever it is. I didn't spend enough time. Yeah. But it does help when you have somebody else look at it, especially for me with you and the experience that you have and knowing what's good, what's not, what's acceptable, what's not. Mm-hmm. Having you look at it and be like, No, this is okay.
All right, I've got kind of like a rapid fire questions for you.
Oh, shit.
I got 5 questions.
Oh, God.
They're one-word answers.
Oh, boy. Okay. I don't have any of that for you, so I guess I'll just do it.
Yeah. All right. Who is someone you got to know better this year?
Katie.
Who do you wish you'd got to know better this year?
Jason.
What's your single biggest time waster in the past year?
I don't know how to describe it. ADHD. Fuzzy brain syndrome.
Okay, all right. What was your best memory of the year?
Born Thunder. Probably specifically shooting at the Unreal luncheon. It was just like such a nice day. All of our friends, family were there. Madison was there. That was one of those moments where I felt very grateful for what we do.
Well, speaking of that, the last one, what are you most thankful for?
Getting the opportunity to do something creative with my friends and family involved.
Cool. I didn't know which way you would go with a couple of those because I'm thinking, oh, your best memory of the year, like it has to be your engagement.
Getting engaged?
Yeah.
Well, okay, it should have been, and I thought about that after the fact, but I was in such a work mindset with...
I know, you answered them all like...
It was Scrapyard based.
That's fine.
Yeah. Well, now I'm like, who would I, outside of work, who would I like to know better? No one, really. I'm pretty good where I'm at.
That's funny.
What's your word of the year for 2024?
Well, let's see. For 2022, it was opportunity. I don't think I even made one for 2020. I didn't think about it. But I do remember writing opportunity in my journal almost every day in 2022.
Okay. Well, what about 2024? Stop buying yourself time.
I don't know.
Word of the year. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Growth.
Okay. Explain.
You did a lot of growth in 2023, but I think it was foundational growth, and now it's going to be value-based growth, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Things that are directly correlating into the growth of Scrapyard. Mm-hmm. And that's the other one, growing Scrapyard. You need to make more money. I would like to make more money. I'd like to have nicer cameras, do bigger projects. All of that takes growth. Mm-hmm. So learning how to scale the business while you learn how to get better at shooting and editing.
Everything.
Pretty much everything
Yeah.
right now is can we get to the next level?
Yeah. And it's directly correlated with my growth and your growth too. I mean, just continuous growth, but specifically mine, in that if I can get to the point where I'm providing equal value to what you're providing, then theoretically that should tie to double the size of the business.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to spend more time than me learning how to film and edit this year, as I spend more time figuring out how to get new clients and market and sell projects.
Freeing space for you to do things that will actually grow the company.
Right.
We can have this pool of knowledge, but then it's marketing it and getting jobs with it.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing a podcast. We've never done that before. We're going to consistently make YouTube videos. We tried to do that last year. Did a couple. Didn't really work out that great. Yeah. So we're trying to grow in all these different areas, so I guess it's got to be that.
Yeah. That's a good word. Yeah, I like that.
Do you have one?
I think the common theme for me is probably discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, that's taking who I am and what I do well and taking who you are and what you do well. I'm trying to adopt some of your tendencies, behaviors, and strategies to be disciplined, because historically I am not the most disciplined person. Mm-hmm. If I've tried to set a target for myself, sometimes I hit it, but I'm so comfortable not hitting things that I can kind of just let go of it and not feel any guilt, where I think sometimes the guilt of failing yourself drives you to do more. Not you personally, maybe you personally too, but I'm just saying in general, people. Yeah. And so I need to almost adopt some of that in feeling bad that I set a target for myself and didn't hit it. Buying that journal from you and kind of like putting myself through the ringer with it is helping. And so I'm just going to try to find things like that throughout the year that work for me. So maybe it's not necessarily that, but some version of that I'll ultimately use. So yeah, just becoming more disciplined.
Nice. I think that's pretty fitting. I was thinking, I mean, I went through everything that I wanted to talk about. I was thinking we just film the intro and I'm good.
That's interesting, filming the intro at the very end.
Well, that's what you said.
I didn't imagine doing it right away.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not bad.
No, I know exactly what I want to say.
Let me see. I'm going to make sure that I got everything.
All right, I'm going to film this intro while you think about that.
Okay, good.